What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of the Ask Dr. Nick show. I'm here in Central Park. We just had a weekend, Valentine's Day weekend here in New York, and we're heading out in a few hours, so I wanted to make sure I got this in before the end of the day. So today we're going to it's kind of a theme show. We're going to be doing more of those as we go on, just so that the questions aren't so random. So what I did is I asked students or potential associates, or maybe even associates now, on questions that they might have had when they were looking, on questions that they have for chiropractors that might be hiring, and maybe give them some insight into what doctors that own practices are thinking when they're hiring associates. So let's get started. So question number one, normally I do 5 questions, and there were a few extras that I thought were good, so I think we've got 7 questions today. So the first question is, what would make the perfect associate? So the perfect associate, in my mind, is what's going to be the best fit for that office or for that doctor. So some doctors want, and I'm just gonna give this this little thought on Chiro Matchmakers that's run by Alan Miner and Stephen Franson, Mark Mao, Sheila Miner, or Sheila Milserick. I can never remember how to pronounce her last name, but Sheila. Love you, Sheila. So they have in Chiro Matchmakers, they have kind of a concept where they talk about the 3 types of associate. There is the race car. That's going to be the business builder, the person who's really probably meant to go do it out on their own. When I was an associate for a couple of months, I was more of a race car. Like, I knew I was eventually going to do it on my own, so I wasn't going to stay for very long. The other end of the spectrum is the pickup truck. Those are going to be the people that are looking for a long-term situation. They're looking for stability. They're looking to be more of a caregiver. Don't really want to be focused that much on the business building side of it. So they aren't going to want to do as many like screenings or content marketing or going out and doing talks in the community. But they're going to be great with the patients. They're going to be great at helping you get outside of the practice more, if that's what you're wanting to do as a doctor, as an owning doctor. And they're just, they're great for the situations that they're great for. And then in the middle is the SUV. That's going to be people that have a little bit of that business builder side of it. They're really looking for more stability, though, but they're willing to go out and do it. They've got the skill set to be able to be successful with it. They also are usually looking for a longer term situation, if it's the right situation. Like if it's not a great fit, then they're going to be wanting to either go out and do it on their own or find another opportunity. So with that in mind, I'm going to be kind of referring to that as we go through these questions, just because there's a couple of questions that I think are relevant to it. So with the perfect associate, it really matters what that doctor is looking for. So if you guys have listened to my interview with Jeff Danielson, he has a program called Big Fish, and that's where he intentionally brings people in that are rock stars, that are the business builders, that are the race cars. He wants to bring those people in to spend 2 years in his practice. A lot of times he'll have them come intern while they're students. He's up in Minneapolis, or near Minneapolis, so he draws from the Northwestern school, brings them in as associates, allows them to start to get their feet wet, kind of finds the ones that are good fits, and then they end up coming and working for him for a couple of years. And then once they hit certain metrics, they go out and he ends up partnering with them on their practice, and eventually they buy him out. And it's a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for Jeff, because he gets great associates and he gets an investment opportunity. It's great for the associate because they don't have to go through a bank or deal with doing it alone. They get great training, and it's great for the patients because they're able to serve a lot more people doing it that way than just keeping it in one office. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is something like my office, where I'm looking for people that want to partner with me for a long time, that want to be in my practice. I don't really like turnover that much, so I'm always looking for associates that are looking for a great opportunity to make a great living, live in a nice city, and be able to really make an impact and start to build the relationship with their patients long term. So I wouldn't really be interested in, working with somebody in my main office that wants to stay for a year or two and just come and learn some stuff and then leave, that doesn't really fit with what my needs are. So that would be what I say to the perfect associate. The perfect associate is the one that's going to, regardless of which one of those three you are and what happened or what the doctor is looking for, the perfect associate is going to be someone who is upfront and honest about what it is they're looking for. The doctor hopefully is upfront and honest about what they're looking for, and the associate comes in and busts their ass no matter what area they are in or what situation they're in. All right. Question number 2, why are salaries so low and bonus laden? So the reason why most offices are offering lower salaries and adding in bonuses is because they want to defray the risk, obviously. So a lot of chiropractors, have been burned by the associate situation. Not so much burned by the associates. A lot of times they just manage them poorly, or they go in with bad expectations, or they don't train them correctly. I mean, I know I've had my fair share of bad situations with associates, and I take 100% responsibility for all of them, because if they would have been hired better or trained better or communicated with better, they would have turned out better. So I've got 2 great associates now that are working really well, and one's been with me for 10.5 years, and but I've also been more communicative. I don't know how to say that, but I've communicated with them more than maybe more efficiently than the other ones. So I would like to see where starting salaries were higher. The problem is that most doctors that are hiring associates don't really have, it's not like they have an overflowing amount of business, and that's why they're hiring the associate. A lot of doctors have kind of plateaued in the practice, and they're hoping that bringing in another doctor that's able to do other things will be able to grow the practice. So when you own a business, if you're 100% owner, any new expenses come 100% out of your pocket. And so it's short-term thinking to think, if I hire an associate and I pay him $80,000-$90,000 a year, that's $80,000-$90,000 a year that's coming straight out of my take-home pay. In the first month, maybe 2 months, that's maybe true, but long-term, it's not. I just think that the chiropractors in general are a pretty conservative bunch when it comes to investment and spending money. So, for me, I hired my first associate when I was seeing 30 people a week. Hired my second one when I was seeing, between the two of us, we're seeing 75 people a week. So I'm all for, I'll give up the money to be able to have the help in the practice, to be able to see the patients. But I knew that if my time was freed up, we'd be able to bring in more new patients, take care of more people. And so it was going to be a net positive for me. But I think the reason why most do it is because they're looking for the associate to help grow the practice if it's plateaued. And that's usually the reason I see that they pay a lower salary. Now, the other alternative is maybe if they're trading you, if somebody says, hey, listen, if you come in, work your ass off for 1 or 2 years, and I teach you how to go open your own practice, then who cares like how much you make in those 1 or 2 years if you think you're going to get great training from that doctor. So if you made $40,000 a year for 18 months while you learn the ins and outs of how to run a successful practice, it's like a residency in medical school, where it's just like you're learning what you need to learn to get out there into the real world. So just kind of all depends. If you're in it for the long haul, and you're more of that SUV pickup truck type associate, and you're looking for a career in that practice, then to me it makes sense to start out with a higher salary. Now, again, for me, like somebody like me, I wouldn't have cared about the salary. I would have cared more about the bonuses or the percentage structure, because I work really well on commission. Like, you eat what you kill. So my brain works that way. So for me, when I started, I was an associate for about 2 months before I bought my first practice from the guy. And for those 2 months, I made a percentage of actually what I billed, which was a bad idea for him. But So, you know, most are a percentage of what you collect, but anyway, so the percentage works for somebody like me. If that doesn't really work for your, like the way that, you know, your value structure or your brain really works, or your incentives work, then that might not be a great fit for you. All right, number 3, what can I do to earn a higher salary from the start? So getting back to this a little bit, you know, providing value. You know, if you know, everything's a negotiation. Like, you can always ask for more. Just because they say they offer this doesn't mean that if they found the perfect person that they wouldn't offer more. So just coming in and selling yourself versus just trying to like fit the bill for what it is you think they're looking for. You know, I've done a lot of interviews, and, you know, very rarely does anyone come in and like sell me on them, you know? So it's, you know, if you want to earn more, you got to make it, you're talking to a business owner that, again, it's a small practice usually. You know, very rarely are you talking to some kind of like big corporation where they're making, you know, 5, 10, 20, $100 million, where it's like some, you know, large conglomeration of practices. Most likely you're talking to somebody who owns one practice, maybe 2, maybe you're going into the satellite clinic. But the way that you can get more up front is you can basically guarantee them that they're not going to lose money on you, because that's what doctors' biggest fear is when it comes to hiring an associate, is that they're worried that it's going to be a lost cause, or a sunk cost. You know, it's going to be something that takes their time, takes their money, takes their energy, and there's no real return for them. So if you can show them that by paying you more, that you're a stud, you're a star that can come in there and help them grow the practice, you're going to take great care of their patients, you're going to make their life easier, maybe you're going to add some things in there that they've been wanting to do but just don't have the time to do. You know, most practicing chiropractors, if you're talking to somebody who's the solo practitioner in a practice, time is their biggest problem, right? So if you can help them with things that they've been struggling to do because they just haven't had time, or you can free up more of their time, most of them would be, I think, willing to trade their dollars for their time. So that's one way to do that. So remember, everything's a negotiation. You can always ask for more. They can always say no, or they might say yes. So, but you're going to have to sell them on why that is a good business decision for them. All right, number 4. Why are there so few associateships compared to offices that are out there? So the reason why there's so few associateships is because there's so few offices that I think are really crushing it. So I think the average office, in my opinion, probably collects around $20,000 a month, which means their overhead's probably 10, which means they're taking home about 10, which is enough for like a comfortable life. But that's probably like the average. There's a lot of people that are under that are barely scraping by. I remember the office that I took over when I moved the first time in my practice. The guy had kind of left, you know, kind of in the middle of the night, but he left, and he had wanted to, like, I think he had wanted to sell me his practice, if I remember correctly. I'd gone and talked to him at one point. And he was basically collecting almost the exact amount that his bills were. So he was collecting like $8,000 a month, and his bills were $8,000 a month to run the practice. So there's a lot of situations out there like that, and a lot of it comes down to, I just don't think a lot of chiropractors are entrepreneurs in spirit. I think they just happen to own businesses sometimes, and they're not always great business owners and business builders, and so they don't really have enough to supply for someone else. Like, if they brought in an associate, it would basically just be cannibalizing, you know, what they're already doing. So I think that that's really the reason. I would love to see, you know, that be different. I'd love for you know, offices to grow more and to understand marketing and you know, retention and conversion and all the things that are important to running a successful practice. You know, the more successful the docs can be, the more they can bring on associates to allow for other people to flourish. So, all right, we got literally like kids walking like 1 inch next to me. So, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Question number 5. How do I find the best mentorship or experience if I eventually want to open my own? So this is a question from my buddy John Reuter with the Legendary Chiropractor podcast. I'm going to be a guest on his podcast on Thursday, so I asked him for that. And I think this is kind of like my spin on what he was asking. But so how do I find the best mentorship or experience if I eventually want to open my own? So the way to do that is to find the people that resonate with what you do, like that are already successful in what you want to do. If you want to open your own, my biggest recommendation is to find somebody that's uber successful regardless of where they live. Like don't think that you need to go, like let's say you wanted to live in Chicago or live here in New York. You don't have to go to New York to like mentor with someone. You could go to Minneapolis and mentor with somebody and learn what it is that you need to learn, and then take that knowledge to the place that you actually want to start your practice or you want to live. So my biggest thing, if you know you want to open your own, is find people that are going to be experts in the style of practice that you want, the technique that you want. Like if you're a CBP doc, if you can go work for Deed Harrison, go work for Deed Harrison. Like that's going to be, or whoever has like the biggest practice, who you follow on Facebook and is just like unbelievable. Almost any of those guys are going to, especially if they're super successful, they're going to always need people to help them, further the mission. And if you can go and basically almost like volunteer your time, I mean, you need to make something. So if you, are willing to take some kind of minimal salary just to get by. I did an interview with Rob Vasquez and Randy Johns at Parker last week. And Rob was talking about how he went and interned with this woman in Dallas. And he was like, I'll do anything. I don't need to get paid. I'll sweep the floors. I'll clean the toilets. I just want to be around somebody successful and learn what I need to learn. And I think that that's the mentality that if you know you want to go start your own, that's the mentality to take. What I did was not the way to do it. I, kind of like stumbled into an associateship, and then I bought the practice from the guy, and it was not like well planned out. And I wish it would have been a little bit more planned out. I mean, it worked out all well the way it did, but if you're doing it from right now, find those people that are fine with having somebody come in and they can teach and they can train, and then you can go off and do it on your own. All right. So you guys are so lucky because Facebook and Instagram and all this, all these coaches that have programs, they all want, great examples of how they were able to help people evolve and grow and start out fast in practice. So let's see. Number 6. How honest should I be about my intentions if I only want to stay and learn for a year or two? You should always be honest, for sure, because you never want to create that bad karma or that bad relationship with the person. If don't tell them that you're going to be there for 10 years and then leave after one and say, you gave me everything that I need and I'm good to go. So you absolutely want to be as honest as possible when it comes to, man, I'm in like the thoroughfare here for these rocks. I'm on these rocks. These rocks are pretty cool. They like are from like a glacier or something back in like the Ice Age, or somebody told me the story one time, and I thought it was pretty cool. But these rocks have been here for like millions of years. All right, so you should always be 100% upfront when you're looking for a position. Don't come in and and a lot of it comes down to just reading the ad that's out there. The ads will usually give it away, and if the ad is good, it'll be very clear as to what they're looking for, but sometimes they're not so clear. But usually they'll give it away even if they're not being clear of like, what is it that they're looking for? Are they looking to invest in somebody and help them buy a practice, or are they looking to have an associate for the next 30 years? A lot of it will be pretty clear in the ad itself. So kind of keep an eye out for that. Don't apply for jobs that looks like they're looking for somebody for 30 years if you only want to be there for 2, right? So be super duper honest. One of my early mentors, Noel Lloyd, he always said, just let me know if you want to, what was it? He said, learn and stay, meaning like come and learn and then stay and be an associate long-term. Learn and leave, meaning you learn what you need and then you're out, or learn and buy. So that would have been you learn, and then similar to what I talked about with Jeff Danielson, where he would set you up, or I'm sorry, his model was he would set you up in a practice, you guys would build it together, and you would learn what you needed to learn, and then you would buy that practice. So so just be sure that you're being upfront and honest with the person that you're interviewing with on what your intentions are, because all of it is okay, all of it is fine. All of it's fine on the doctor, on the hiring doctor's side. It just, you just need to make sure that you match up fit wise. All right. This last question is from my buddy Shane Smith. He's my interview on episode 101. He's a podcast super fan and he had listened to all 100 episodes, and we interviewed him on 101, and he gave his best takeaways, best interviews, things like that. All right, he says, how can I, he's an associate now, but I said, give me a question that you would have asked, when you were looking. So question number 7 is, how can I grow with the company? How will my roles change? And what are the benchmarks or requirements for me to get there? So I think this is a good one to just kind of like be a question, in an interview, like when they say, do you have any questions for me? That would be a really good question, especially if you want to stay there for a long time. Because just because you get hired, especially in a growing practice that's not like super mature, things can change. Like things change all the time. Like my practice is kind of at a point now where it's pretty mature, so there's not as much that changes from year to year or month to month. But when I hired my second associate and I stopped seeing patients, we were in an office of, I think, like 1,200 square feet. And within a year or two, we had moved into an office of 5,200 square feet. We had added in a gym. We had added in 8 weeks to wellness. We had added in a recovery center. So we had all kinds of different stuff going on that neither one of the associates were really hired into. Now, when I hire people, because it's more of a mature office, they like the systems are already kind of set. The idea of the direction of the practice is set. So there really aren't that many changes. They just need to master, the things that they need to do. But when I had hired my first 2 associates, things were always changing. I was always going to seminars. I was always learning new things. I was coming back, and and one of them ended up becoming a problem with one of the associates. Well, maybe both, but one worked through it better than the other. And so that second associate ended up leaving, and it was just mainly because roles were changing, responsibilities were changing, agreements were changing, and I just want to be sure that that the doctors out there know that when they hire, just like when you hire a front desk person, the more that you can know exactly what they're going to be doing when you hire them. Because what I found when I've hired people is the more I can hire them, tell them what it is that they're supposed to do, and then they keep doing that forevermore, the better off it goes. The more you change, just the more you have to communicate. Sometimes I'm bad about communicating all the whys and training, and sometimes I'm like, this is a good idea, we're going to do it, and then it creates chaos sometimes in my office. I've been getting better at it, but I used to be worse at it. So that question from Shane was a good one, in that associates are always going to want to know, how can I grow? If they're not just coming to learn and go open up on their own, most of them would prefer to stay and make a great salary at some place that they're comfortable at. Like I said, most chiropractors I do not think are entrepreneurial. It's just that they kind of get forced into it because the associateships are so crappy out there. I did an interview with Todd Pickman a few months back, and I think he said that when he left his associateship before he started his practice, he was on pace. I can't remember. It was either $300,000 or $400,000. I think it was $300,000. But he was on pace to make $300,000 because he was bringing in $1 million as an associate, and they had an agreement set up. I think it might have been $400,000 actually, because I remember being like, oh, that's a fair split. Like he was going to make like 40% of the money that he brought in. So if you have that model in place for somebody, if you have that ability to where they're bringing in $1 million and they can keep, 30 to 40% of it, I think that's a fair deal all around. So you need to make sure that you're asking that question as an associate, and as the as from the hiring doctor side of it. Man, it's like you'd love to have that. You'd love to have a superstar that's just crushing it in your practice forever. I just think that there's a lot of associates out there that are kind of just like, I don't know if they just feel salty about it, or if they aren't completely fulfilled, and they end up just kind of not doing the minimum, but not doing the maximum either. And if you're doing the maximum and you treat that practice like it's your own practice, and I think that's probably the biggest take home. If you treat it like it is your own practice, you'll get paid like you would in your own practice, only without all of the stress and the headache of running the practice. And I think that that's the real opportunity for associates that I don't think that they realize, is that if they went all in with something that most of these chiropractors never sell these practices for much anyway. So like in terms of like having equity and like owning the practice, there's really not let me just put it this way. If you grew $1 million practice inside of someone's office and you made 30 to 40% of it, you're making in the top 1% of 1% of chiropractors, without all the stress, without all the headache of running the practice. And like I said, when these offices, even the biggest offices have the biggest problem. I know a guy right now who has a $2 million practice that would sell it for less than $1 million if he could get the deal. So there's all kinds of misconceptions when it comes to like owning a practice. Like I feel like associates think that they're missing out on like building equity in something, and it's like, you might get one payout at the end but I just don't know very many offices that sell for much more than $1 million. So it's not like it's life-changing money. You're not really, unless you build like multiple practices, you're not selling out for any like life-changing money. So you're basically running a business to fund your lifestyle, as long as you have it. So if you're an associate and you're doing great, and you can, like I said, if you can work out a percentage split or some kind of deal with the doctor, or maybe they give you some equity. I don't know, but like again, everything's negotiable. But having that mindset of like, you want to build $1 million, the name of this podcast is Path to $1 Million. You don't have to own the practice to be on the path to $1 million. You can build $1 million practice inside of someone else's, or help them at $1 million in value. And I can promise you that they'll do about anything to keep you if you help them with that. So I hope this was helpful. I'm freezing my ass off out here in Central Park. It was supposed to be like 40, but because there's no sun out, it feels like it's like 20. So hopefully you guys found some value in this. If you're an associate and you're looking for a position and you have any other questions, please hit me up on social. It's Dr. �Nick𝐶ilveri, Dr. �Nick𝐶ilveri on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Or leave a comment, below wherever you watch or listen to this. So hope you guys have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon.